Hello, this is Rochelle, and in this video we are going to be talking about finding the equation of a line. If you remember, the equation of a line can be written in a couple different forms. Slope-intercept form is probably the most common that you will see. That's y equals mx plus b, where m in this case is our slope, and the point 0b is our y-intercept point. Oftentimes we'll use function notation to write that. You'll also see sometimes point slope form used, where we can just plug in a point in the slope to find the equation. I'm going to go ahead and utilize both of those to begin with so you can see how to use them, and then you can choose on your own which one you want to use. You also need to recall the formula for slope. This here is the formula for slope. It's rise over run. But basically you subtract the y values, that is your numerator, and then over your denominator, which is the difference between the x values. So our first learning objective is to find the equation of the line given one point and a slope. And so if we wanted to find the equation of this line passing through this point and this slope, well, in this case, this point is actually pretty special, because 0, 6, if you imagine where that is a y-intercept. So I can literally just plug in what I see here. I can plug in 6 for my slope and -3/2 for my -3/2 for my slope and 6 for my b value or y-intercept. And it's as simple as that. In this case, if I use the other form, the point slope form, it's going to take me a few steps to get there, not very many. But here, my y1 is my point right here. So my y1 is my 6. My slope, or my m, is -3/2. And then my x value is 0. So realistically, we could get there in almost one step. X minus 0 is just going to be x. But I would need to add 6 to both sides to come up with this equation. Now that's a very specific instance when we're given the y-intercept. In some cases, we could also be given another point that's not the y-intercept. So I'll show you how we might use this to find our equation in using both formulas. So we're going to use both the slope-intercept form and point slope form, and we'll show that we get the same answers. So again, my slope is -4, so that means my m is -4. So I'm going to plug that into this formula here. Now in this case, I'm going to need to find my x. I'm going to need to find my b value. So I'm simply just going to plug in my point. This is my x and this is my y. Maybe I'll color code them. That's my x and this is my y. So I'm going to plug in my y value, -4. Equals -4. And for x, I'm going to plug in my x value, which is -2. And then I'm solving for b. And so in this question, if I multiply -4 times -2, I'm going to get 8. And to solve for b, I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. So I'm going to end up, with b equaling -12. Now the key thing you have to remember is once you get there is you need to actually write the equation out, with -4 being my x and 12 being my y-intercept. Every equation you write should end up with y equals a number times x plus a number or minus a number. So in some cases, people think, a lot of people say, well, this is a little bit easier because I'm going to plug my y1. You can just call this y1 and this x1. I'm going to plug my y1 into this formula. So I'm going to plug in -4 right here. In for my m, I'm going to plug in -4. Then I'm just going to leave my x alone, and then in place of my x1, I'm going to go ahead and plug in my point -2. So here, we just have to be careful with our signs. Minus a -4 is really going to be +4. Minus a -2 is also going to be +2. And now to get it to look like the other equation, we're just going to need to do some simplifying. I'm going to first distribute the -4 through to make it -4x minus 8. And then I'm simply going to subtract 4 from both sides. And that will give me y equals negative 4x minus 12. Or we could also write that as f of x equals negative 4x minus 12. Same equation, two different ways of doing it. So really, it's up to you on how you want to complete it. So I guess we can go ahead and do 2 more questions. In this problem here, I'm going to go ahead and do it both ways, I guess. So we have our slope here. We have our x or x1 and our y1. So plugging it into y equals mx plus b. Remember, I'm going to plug in my y value over here. Then I'm going to plug in my slope, my x value, which is negative 5, plus b. So I'm going to have negative 20 over 3 plus b. Think of this as over 1, which means I'm going to have to add 20 over 3 to both sides. Now, I highly encourage you to use your calculator when adding fractions. If you have a TI 83, 84, or pluses in any of that regard, if you put this in as you see it, and then press math, and then enter twice, you will get an answer that is in fraction form, or 29/3. So my answer would be 4/3 x plus 29 over 3. To utilize the other form, if you like that better, we're simply going to go and we're going to plug in our y1 right here, which is 3. We're going to plug in our slope, which is 4/3. And then we're going to plug in our x1, which is minus 5, or negative 5, I should say. So now I'm going to have y minus 3 equals 4/3 times x plus 5. Again, you can utilize your calculator to multiply, but I know that 4 times 5 is going to be 20 over 3. And if you look at it, I'm ending up with the same exact arithmetic that I'm doing by adding 3 to both sides. This is exactly what I did on the left here. So I'm going to end up with 4/3 x plus 29 over 3. The last problem we have here is a little bit different because the slope is 0. So if I go ahead and I plug that into my formula, when I plug in 0 here, I'm going to plug in 22 over here, 0 and 0 here plus b. My b value, oh goodness, my b value is going to be 22, but my m value is 0. So really, I just end up with an equation y equals 22. If I did it the other way, I would have y minus 22 equals 0 times x minus 0. But 0 times anything is just going to be 0. And then if we add 22 to both sides, we're going to end up with y equals 22. This is just a horizontal line at my favorite number, 22. As a 0 slope, you can kind of remember that. If you're a skier and you're trying to go on this slope, you're not going to go anywhere. It has a 0 slope. When it's vertical, it's undefined slope. And you can kind of think of that. If you're a skier, you're pretty soon going to be undefined. Thanks for watching.